Today, we're embarking on an incredible journey, stretching way back millions of years. What if the very essence of what makes us human, our incredible capacity for cooperation, our profound empathy, our really unique way of raising our young PO, what if it stems from something far more ancient and, frankly, more unexpected than we often imagine? We're diving deep into the profound ideas presented in Sarah Blaffer Hrdy's groundbreaking work, Mothers and Others, The Evolutionary Origins of Mutual Aid. This isn't just about, dusty fossils or abstract theories. It's about understanding the very fabric of our being, how we connect, why we care, and what makes us fundamentally different, yet also deeply similar to our primate cousins.
That's exactly right. Our mission for you, our listener today, is to truly unravel why humans are so uniquely cooperative. This isn't just a quaint observation. It's a trait so deeply ingrained that it fundamentally shaped our biology, our brains, and, well, basically every aspect of our societies. We're going to look at how our ancestors survived, not just by being the strongest or, the smartest, but by being incredibly connected and interdependent. It's about what makes us compared to other apes, and it's full of those truly fascinating aha moments that might just make you rethink your own everyday behaviors, from how you raise your kids to why you might say, help a stranger you'll never see again.
Absolutely. And in doing so, we're going to directly challenge some pretty long-held conventional wisdom. Ideas that have permeated economics, psychology, even our basic understanding of evolution. Forget the idea of humans as purely self-interested, rational actors, always calculating their gains and losses. And let's maybe put aside the traditional man-the-hunter model of human evolution, which, let's be honest, often overlooks the absolutely crucial role of collective care. Hrdy's work offers a much more nuanced, and I would argue, a far more empathetic and interconnected origin story for our species. It's a narrative that puts communal care right at the heart of what it means to be human.
It really does. It's a fundamental shift in perspective.
Okay, let's unpack this then, part one. The foundations of this human hypersociality. It seems it's more than just mind reading. When we really look at ourselves compared to our closest primate relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, what genuinely leaps out isn't just, say, our intelligence in abstract problem solving,
No, not primary.
but rather our incredible social intelligence.
Yeah.
Hrdy highlights this point, that humans are much more adept at cooperating with the people around us than other apes are.
Yeah.
And it's not just about raw brain power, is it? It feels like something deeper, something almost magnetic.
Exactly. It's this heightened interest in an ability to scan faces, she calls it. Like we have this internal radar that's always on.
Always scanning.
And a perpetual quest to understand what others are thinking and intending. We are, as a species, constantly trying to get inside other people's heads to figure out what makes them tick. What's truly fascinating here, and quite distinct, is that this ability, people sometimes call it mind reading, casually, is more formally known as intersubjectivity. It's the capacity for shared understanding, for recognizing that others have minds like our own, with intentions, feelings, beliefs.
And it's not something we learn slowly over years, right?
No, that's the key. It emerges incredibly early in human development. From practically day one, human infants are seeking eye contact, they're tracking gazes, they're responding to emotional cues and voices and faces. This early capacity provides the fundamental groundwork for everything else, for sophisticated communication, for empathy, for the really complex social interactions that define us. They are, in essence, sort of pre-programmed for profound connection.
And there's solid biological evidence for this, isn't there? This early, almost primal capacity for empathy and connection.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about specialized regions of the human brain, huge areas, actually, in the frontal and parieto-temporal cortex that seem dedicated to interpreting vocalizations and facial expressions.
Right, huge dedicated areas. And this capacity isn't just passive, it's practically roaring into action from day one. Our tiny infants are already, eagle-eyed and sharp-eared, ravenously absorbing every flicker of emotion on faces, every nuance in a voice.
And then mirroring them back, which is astonishing.
It is astonishing. They're like little emotional sponges, soaking up the world around them, making sense of it through social interaction. This wiring for intersubjectivity is just fundamental to what makes us human.
Okay, now let's pivot to something that might seem completely counterintuitive, especially if you buy into that idea of humans as purely rational, self-interested beings. Our irrational generosity. Think about this classic experiment, the one-shot game. People are told they're playing a game with a total stranger, someone they'll never meet again.
Right, complete anonymity.
No possibility of future interaction, no way to reciprocate, no benefit to their reputation, no future consequence whatsoever.
Logically, you keep everything.
The logical, self-interested choice, in a vacuum, would be to keep all the resources for yourself, right? Yet in these games, an astonishing 42% of randomly selected strangers still opt to behave cooperatively. They share resources even when there's no apparent payoff.
This generosity, as you say, it seems utterly irrational. It's a genuine puzzle, especially for economists who are, used to celebrating individualism and using models that assume these self-interested rational actors driven only by personal gain.
Yeah, it blows up their models.
It really does. And even for a sociobiologist who might focus on competitive strategies for individual gene survival, this level of altruism in a one-shot scenario is, well, it's hard to explain through that lens alone. But Hrdy's work offers this crucial insight. Our brains weren't really designed, evolutionarily speaking, to register one-shot deals.
Ah, that's the key.
Our ancestral environment taught us, drilled into us, that we would encounter and re-encounter our neighbors again and again. Failures to reciprocate, failures to offer help or share.
Well, you have consequences.
Huge consequences. It would inevitably lead to loss of allies, damage to your social standing, or even worse, complete social exclusion. And in that interdependent past, that was basically a death sentence. So what looks like irrational generosity in a modern lab setting is actually probably a deeply ingrained evolutionary response. A default setting left over from a world where reciprocity was literally vital for survival.
That's such a powerful point. It really forces us to reconsider how much of our everyday behavior, even those seemingly spontaneous acts of kindness, are driven by these ancient instincts, even when we don't consciously realize it. Have you ever done something kind for a stranger, knowing you'd never see them again? Maybe let someone go ahead of you in line, or help pick up something they dropped?
Sure, most of us have.
This research suggests it might be less about just being nice, in a purely learned cultural sense, and maybe more about this deep-seated evolutionary wiring, a kind of residue of a time when every interaction had potential long-term consequences for our social standing and survival.
It definitely makes you think differently about those moments.
It really does, and it makes you wonder how different our world might be if we actively acknowledged and maybe even nurtured this innate generosity more. Now, as we try to pinpoint what makes us distinctly human, anthropologists have, for centuries, kept drawing these lines in the sand, right? Trying to divide us neatly from other animals.
Only to have new discoveries constantly blur those boundaries.
Exactly. It's been a bit of a humbling process for science, I think.
Indeed. We often came up with these lists of uniquely human attributes, language, tool-making, foresight, without fully realizing how much more they revealed about our ignorance of other animals than about our own species' actual special traits.
Right, like the classic example, man the toolmaker. That was the big one for a long time.
It was. But that proud assertion really lost its central place when researchers like Jane Goodall observed wild chimpanzees in Tanzania's Gombe National Park. They were meticulously tailoring twigs, stripping off leaves, fraying the ends, specifically to fish for termites in their mounds.
That wasn't just using a found object, that was modifying a tool for a specific purpose.
Exactly. A truly surprising discovery back then that shattered a long-held belief about human exceptionalism.
And it wasn't just tool making either. We also thought complex planning, foresight, that was exclusively ours.
Another one that fell. Consider orangutans and bonobos. They've been observed selecting specific tools, maybe a sturdy stick or a particular type of leaf, carrying them for quite long distances.
And then using them an hour or more later.
Yeah, for tasks they anticipated needing to perform, like extracting honey from a hive or opening tough nuts. So foresight and complex planning, once considered definitive human hallmarks, aren't exclusively ours either.
It just makes you realize how many of our traditional definitions of humanity were simply based on, well, a lack of understanding of other species. We were comparing ourselves to caricatures, almost.
That's very true. Now, while other apes are certainly social creatures, they live in complex hierarchies, they have intricate relationships, alliances, rivalries.
Definitely social.
Heichi clarifies that human infants are what she calls ultrasocial. Unlike chimpanzee and other great ape infants, almost all human babies are naturally, spontaneously eager to collaborate with others, even with strangers.
That seems like a key difference. Collaboration with strangers.
It is. From the earliest days, human babies engage in what's called joint attention. They follow an adult's gaze or a pointing finger to share focus on an object, or they offer objects to others, sometimes even when they don't want anything in return, just sharing for the sake of sharing. Given the opportunities, humans develop these inherent proclivities into incredibly complex social engagements, from early imitation and learning by watching to intricate gift exchanges right from the first months of life.
So it's this spontaneous eagerness to connect, to share attention, to cooperate that really sets us apart early on.
That seems to be a core difference, yes.
Yeah.
It lays the groundwork for our uniquely human societies, for culture, for large-scale cooperation.
It's incredible how much we've learned about our primate cousins, blurring so many lines we thought were solid. But it still leaves me wondering if it's not those impressive cognitive skills in isolation, like tool-making or planning,
Right.
then what is the truly unique human signature when it comes to social connection? What is it about human sociality that truly stands apart?
Well, the answer, as we're about to explore, seems to lie not just in our brains in isolation, but really deeply embedded in our unique and intensely cooperative approach to raising our young.
Cooperative breeding.
Exactly. A strategy that profoundly reshaped our social intelligence and, indeed, our very species.
Okay, part two then. Cooperative breeding, the ancient driver of our social brains. Let's go back in time.
Let's travel back, way back to the crucible of early human survival, to the immense challenges our hominin ancestors faced. One critical problem they grappled with was the unusually slow maturation of our children, far slower than any other primate.
Really slow, yeah. Years and years of dependency.
Coupled with incredibly high infant mortality rates, imagine a world where more than half and sometimes tragically all of a mother's offspring were likely to die before puberty.
That's just staggering to comprehend.
It wasn't just a sad statistic, it created this intense, relentless pressure. It demanded a radically different approach to survival for our species. Raising even one child to adulthood was an enormous, energy-consuming undertaking, fraught with peril every step of the way.
And adding to that challenge, a truly unique biological feature. Human babies are born to a hairless mother.
Right, unlike other primates whose infants can cling on for dear life.
And not only that, but human babies lose their grasping reflex shortly after birth. They literally can't cling to their mother for safety and transport in the same way.
Imagine that tiny, vulnerable infant, utterly naked, with nothing secure to cling to, completely reliant on others for constant physical support and protection. This loss of physical grip meant an unprecedented increase in the need for social support.
So the mother literally couldn't do it alone, even just physically carrying the baby constantly while foraging.
Precisely. It amplified the need for external care enormously. And this brings us to Agee's central argument, a concept she encapsulates in this really profound phrase, the baby plus mother plus others equation.
Baby plus mother plus others.
Yes. This concept fundamentally shifts away from the traditional, almost singular focus on mother-only care, which was often just assumed to be the norm in evolutionary thinking. She argues that maternal commitment and ultimately child survival required the active, continuous, and highly involved participation of a network of caregivers.
These others.
These others, yes, what we call alloparents. These early hominin mothers relied on their groupmates, maybe siblings, aunts, grandmothers, older children, even unrelated individuals to help protect, carry, provision, and teach their unusually slow-maturing children. It was about keeping them on the survivable side of starvation and predation. This communal approach to child-rearing wasn't merely helpful. Hrdy argues it was absolutely essential for our species' continued existence.
And the evidence for this cooperative breeding model, it's really striking when we look at contemporary hunter-gatherer societies, right?
Yeah.
They offer these glimpses into potentially similar ancestral patterns.
Exactly. They provide invaluable insights.
Like the Kung people of the Kalahari, for example. Their infants spent a significant amount of time being held by others, not just their mothers.
A lot of time, yeah. Passed from lap to lap.
We're talking hours each day, interacting with multiple adults and older children. Or consider the Hadza, another foraging group in Tanzania. Their newborns are held by alloparents. So caregivers, other than the biological parents, a whopping 85% of the time in the first few days right after birth.
85%. That's incredible.
And it's not just immediate family doing the holding, is it?
No, that's another key point. Even visitors from neighboring groups might participate in holding and caring for these new additions to the community. It really embodies that idea of the village raising the child.
A literal village.
And this care wasn't just about holding and providing comfort, as crucial as those are. It involved active, costly provisioning, sharing food. These alloparents often included grandmothers, great aunts, older siblings, sometimes fathers too, as we'll discuss.
And the food sharing was different from what we see in chimps.
Very different. Among the Aka, a pygmy group in Central Africa, for instance, infants as young as 3 to 4 months received pre-masticated mouthfuls of food from ala mothers who pushed these delicacies in with their tongues.
Wow, kiss feeding.
Yes, kiss feeding. It's a significant, direct, and incredibly intimate form of early food sharing, and it's initiated from the first months and then sustained for years. This is a crucial distinction from chimpanzees, where food sharing is often more like what Frans de Waal called tolerated theft, where a subordinate might quickly snatch food from a dominant individual, or a mother might reluctantly allow an older offspring to take a piece. It's not usually proactive generosity.
Whereas human alloparents seem to want to share, they want to provision these babies.
Exactly. There's an active motivation to nurture and provide for infants that aren't necessarily their own.
It's a remarkable image, isn't it? A baby being fed, nurtured,
Yeah.
held by so many different loving hands. Now let's talk about the impact of all this shared care, not just for the group's survival, but on the child's development itself.
The impact is profound on multiple levels.
For mothers, this communal support clearly had undeniable biological benefits, right?
Absolutely. Mothers who received help could wean their young at an earlier age because others were providing supplemental food and care,
Which means
which means they could conceive again sooner. This directly impacted their overall reproductive success and the continuity of their lineage. Plus, it saved the mother immense energy and allowed her to forage more efficiently, contributing more food back to the group. It's a win-win.
a positive feedback loop.
Precisely. And for the children themselves, the impact on survival was, well, stunning. Long-term demographic data from rural Gambia, for example, collected over decades, showed a dramatic effect. If a child had older siblings, especially sisters, or if a maternal grandmother was living nearby and helping out,
Their survival chances went up.
significantly, their survival rates increased markedly. And these effects were independent of the mother's own health or social status. It unequivocally demonstrated the critical, life-saving role these others played in ensuring a child made it through those vulnerable early years.
So their mere presence could literally mean the difference between life and death for that child.
Absolutely. It underscores just how vital that network was.
And it goes beyond just mere survival, doesn't it? It reaches into the very core of cognitive and emotional development.
Yes, and this is where some of the most groundbreaking findings lie. Cooperative care is consistently linked to more advanced cognitive and emotional outcomes later in life.
Like that Israeli study you mentioned earlier.
Right, the Israeli study on kibbutz children. It revealed that infants who were securely attached to their metaplot, their dedicated nursery caregivers, essentially professional alloparents, were more self-confident and socially sophisticated several years later when they reached kindergarten.
More confident, more socially skilled.
Yes, they displayed better problem-solving skills, seemed more empathetic towards peers, and navigated social situations with greater ease.
And there was another study in Kenya.
Yes, a study among Gusii agricultural villagers in Kenya found something similar, and perhaps even more striking. A child's cognitive performance later on was actually better predicted by the security of their attachment to other caretakers, not just the mother.
Better predicted by the other caretakers, not just the mom.
Exactly. Which doesn't diminish the mother's importance, of course, but it highlights the profound impact of that broader network. The overarching conclusion from Hrdy's synthesis of this research: an extended, responsive network of caregivers was the best predictor of later advanced functioning.
And that included things like empathy.
Empathy, dominance in a healthy, confident sense, independence, even achievement orientation. It's almost as if being surrounded by many caring, responsive adults creates a richer, more stimulating, and more secure environment for a child's brain to develop and flourish.
So multiple secure attachments are better than just one.
It seems that way. These repeated, consistent experiences of responsive care from many different individuals, combined with continuous physical contact, led children in many foraging societies to acquire what psychologists call working models of their world as a fundamentally giving place.
A giving place, I like that.
It implies growing up with an innate sense of trust and security in their social environment. This, in turn, often meant they developed less fear of strangers, an openness to new social interactions, and a default expectation of help and support from the community.
Which might be a stark contrast to many children in modern, perhaps more isolated societies, who might develop more wariness or anxiety around unfamiliar people.
Potentially, yes. That early giving place worldview, rooted in shared care, likely shaped their entire social outlook in a very positive way.
That truly reframes so much. Think about how much support you received growing up, or maybe how you seek support today for your own family, whether it's from grandparents, aunts, uncles, close friends who feel like family.
That really
Exactly. This deep dive suggests it's not just a nice to have, not just a convenience or a bonus. It's a core human need for optimal development, rooted deep in our evolutionary past.
it's a biological imperative almost.
Yeah. It's a reminder that our social structures today, how connected or isolated we are, profoundly impact the well-being and development of our children, echoing patterns laid down millions of years ago. Okay, so the others are crucial. Let's dive into who these others often were. Part 3. The expanding circle of care grandmothers and fathers. One of the most fascinating aspects of human evolution, and really a testament to this power of cooperative breeding, is what's known as the grandmother hypothesis.
Ah, yes, a really elegant idea.
It addresses this profound evolutionary puzzle that long perplexed scientists. Why do human women live for decades after menopause? Unlike virtually all other female great apes, and indeed most mammals, who tend to continue reproducing until they die.
Right. From a purely individual reproductive perspective, it seems counterintuitive. Why would natural selection favor stopping reproduction relatively early and then having this long post-reproductive lifespan? Seems like a waste of potential offspring, evolutionarily speaking.
Exactly. Why would evolution tolerate such a seeming waste of reproductive potential?
Well, this puzzle began to unravel thanks to the work of anthropologists like Kristen Hawkes. She made this odd yet brilliant discovery while studying the Hadza people, that foraging society in Tanzania we mentioned earlier.
What did she find that was so odd?
She noticed that the most dedicated and often the most productive food gatherers were not the young women in their reproductive prime, nor even the mothers with hungry young children.
But the older women.
Yes, but the leathery-faced old women, as Hardy colorfully puts it, long past their own childbearing years. These grandmothers and great-aunts were consistently carrying the heaviest loads of tubers back to camp, working tirelessly, often bringing back more calories than any other single individual on many days.
Wow. So they were provisioning the group significantly.
Hugely. And the grandmother hypothesis suggests that these postmenopausal women, by working hard to provision their daughters' offspring and helping with childcare, were indirectly contributing massively to their own reproductive success.
How so? Indirectly.
By helping feed and care for their grandchildren, they freed up their daughters, the younger mothers, to wean their babies earlier, recover faster, and conceive again sooner. This increased the total number of surviving grandchildren, profoundly impacting the family's overall fitness and ensuring the continuity of the grandmother's genes down the line.
So their contribution shifted from direct reproduction to supporting the reproduction of their kin.
Precisely. It creates this unique period of life for human females that not only boosts reproductive success, but also profoundly impacts societal structure. These older women become repositories of knowledge, skills, social wisdom.
Allowing for the transmission of culture across generations in a way almost unheard of in other long-lived species.
Exactly. It's a game changer.
It's a truly revolutionary idea. It completely reframes the role of older women in human society, moving them from maybe a peripheral role in some narratives to being a central evolutionary driver. But grandmothers weren't the only ones in this expanding circle of care, right? Fathers also played a role, though maybe a more complex one.
Yes, a crucial role, but definitely more complex and variable. It's been observed across cultures and even across different primate species that male nurturing responses are often, as Hrdy puts it, unreliable and contingent.
Unreliable and contingent. Why would that be? How can something potentially so important like paternal care vary so much from one group to another, or even one individual man to another?
That variability is fascinating and likely reflects a complex interplay of ecological factors, social structures, and individual life history. But then you have these striking counterexamples, like the Acker fathers we touched on earlier.
Ones who are around their babies all the time.
Yeah, they hold the record, basically. The highest average figure for paternal proximity recorded for any human society, spending a whopping 88% of the time within eyesight of their babies.
88%. That's almost constant presence.
It is. And it's not just passive proximity. They are actively holding, playing with, and caring for their infants at very high rates compared to fathers in many other societies.
And why is that, among the Acharia specifically?
It's largely attributed to their primary subsistence activity. communal net hunting. This practice requires cooperation among men and women and often keeps men in or near the camp for longer periods compared to, say, solitary hunting that might take men away for days.
Ah, so the way they get food structures, their social life, and brings dads closer to babies.
Exactly. Their daily lives naturally integrate them into the caregiving network, creating a dynamic that seems to promote high levels of paternal investment.
And it gets even more fascinating, culturally speaking, when we look at some Amazonian societies,
Yeah.
right? Like the
Mhm.
Bari and the R.
Oh, yes, the concept of partible paternity. It's mind-bending from a Western perspective.
Explain that. What is partible paternity?
It's a cultural belief system held by several groups in lowland South America, where it's understood that a child can have multiple biological fathers. The belief is that multiple men's semen contributes to the development of the fetus.
So biologically, we know that's not how it works, but culturally.
Culturally, it's accepted. And crucially, this belief isn't just an abstract idea. It leads directly to multiple men being designated as fathers and therefore having obligations to provide gifts, food, protection, and care for the child.
And does this actually benefit the child?
Remarkably, yes. Research specifically among the Bari showed that children who had two recognized fathers providing for them were actually better fed and on average more likely to survive to adulthood compared to children with only one designated father.
Wow. That's a powerful example of how a cultural belief system can directly enhance child well-being and survival by literally broadening the circle of committed male caregivers.
It really is. It beautifully illustrates how culture can harness and amplify pro-social tendencies, blurring the lines between biological and social fatherhood, ultimately benefiting the child.
It's incredible how culture can tap into these potentials. And speaking of potential, there are actual physiological, hormonal underpinnings to male nurturing, aren't there? It's not purely cultural override.
No, not at all. There's growing evidence for a biological basis. Studies have shown, for example, a measurable drop in testosterone levels in men who are living with pregnant partners or newborn infants, especially if they are actively involved in childcare.
Lower testosterone associated with caregiving.
Seems to be, yes. And perhaps even more compellingly, research on male marmosets, small South American monkeys where males are heavily involved in infant care, has shown an increase in prolactin levels in males who are actively carrying and caring for babies.
Prolactin, isn't that the hormone usually associated with lactation and maternal care in females?
Exactly, and this finding in male marmosets has been replicated multiple times. While the human data on prolactin and fatherhood is still developing, it strongly suggests that a biological potential for nurturing behaviors lies latent in some, if not all, men.
So it's not just a learned behavior from scratch. There's an inherent capacity there.
Precisely, a capacity that can be activated or perhaps suppressed by specific environmental conditions, social cues, and hands-on experiences with infants. It suggests that paternal nurturing is a deep part of our primate heritage, something society can either foster or discourage with real consequences.
Okay, so we've seen how a mother's closest female kin, especially her own mother, can have a huge life-saving impact. And how fathers, under the right conditions, both culturally and perhaps biologically primed, can also be deeply involved caregivers. This leads us to revisit some long-held assumptions about residence patterns in early human societies. For a long time, the standard model in anthropology pointed to male philopatry, right?
Yes, the idea that males typically stayed in their natal group throughout their lives, while females were the ones who dispersed to join other groups upon reaching maturity. This was often seen as a kind of universal pattern across hominids, a foundational aspect of early human social structure.
But Hrdy and others suggest that picture might be wrong, or at least incomplete.
Exactly. Anthropologists like Helen Alvarez have challenged this, based on reanalyzing data from modern hunter-gatherer societies. Alvarez's revised interpretation suggests that nomadic foragers were actually much more opportunistic and flexible in their mating and residence patterns.
Flexible meaning.
Meaning they adapted to local environmental conditions and social circumstances. It wasn't always males staying put and females leaving. Crucially, her work argues that matrilineal residents where females stay near their own mothers or return to their mother's group for childbirth and early child rearing was likely a pivotal and often preferred arrangement for early hominin mothers.
Why would staying near mom be so advantageous?
Because having that deep, reliable support network of matrilineal kin, especially her own mother, the grandmother, meant a female could forage more effectively, breed more successfully, and rear her slow-maturing young more safely, often with more autonomy. It provided a distinct survival and reproductive advantage in the harsh realities of the Pleistocene. It shifts the focus from assuming male dominance and residence patterns to recognizing the profound importance of maternal lineage support.
And this distinction between maternal grandmothers and paternal grandmothers is also key, isn't it? And sometimes the effects are quite stark.
Yes, the research here is fascinating and complex. Studies consistently show that the presence of a maternal grandmother generally has a strong positive effect on child survival and well-being. Maternal grandmothers, Hrdy notes, seem to attach high priority to keeping the mother and her children as well-nourished and healthy as possible. Their labor contributions often correlate positively with how much their grandchildren weigh, and their presence can significantly increase a child's odds of surviving to age 10 in many traditional societies.
Okay, so maternal grandmas are clearly beneficial. What about paternal grandmas?
Well, here's where it gets complicated and sometimes sobering. In some historical studies from rigidly patrilineal societies, societies where inheritance and lineage flow through the male line, the presence of a paternal grandmother was sometimes found to be detrimental to the survival of grandsons.
Detrimental. How could that be?
It's likely due to complex evolutionary trade-offs related to resource competition within the patrilineage. One possibility, as the source mentions, is that in situations where inherited resources like land are scarce, paternal grandmothers might subtly or unconsciously favor other grandsons, perhaps sons of other sons, or their presence might simply intensify competition within the household in ways that ultimately harm a particular grandson's chances. It's a stark reminder that even within family, evolutionary strategies can be incredibly complex, and interests aren't always perfectly aligned. Kin selection isn't always straightforward.
Wow. So the village that raises the child is shaped by these deep evolutionary currents and specific cultural patterns, sometimes in surprisingly intricate and even challenging ways. We've seen the powerful roles of grandmothers, the flexibility of fatherhood, the importance of broader kin networks. But what is it about the babies themselves that makes all this incredible caregiving possible? How do these tiny, helpless creatures manage to pull off such a feat of social magnetism? How do they hook us in?
Now we get to the baby's active role. This takes us into a really fascinating concept known as the misplaced parental care hypothesis. Basically, natural selection inherently favors parents and potential alloparents who are highly responsive to infant signals, cries, coos, big eyes, helplessness. This responsiveness is so deeply ingrained, so powerful that it can sometimes be misplaced,
That's placed how?
leading caregivers to nurture individuals who aren't their own offspring, sometimes even from different species, seemingly making a mistake from their own individual reproductive perspective. But these mistakes reveal the sheer potency of infant cues.
Like the cuckoo example.
Exactly. Reed warblers getting completely duped by common cuckoos, feeding these giant cuckoo chicks that have already kicked the warbler's own eggs out of the nest. The cuckoo chick's gaping mouth and begging calls are just irresistible signals.
Or that fish example you mentioned.
Right, the cichlid mothers who mouth brood their own eggs for safety, but sometimes unwittingly scoop up the eggs of parasitic catfish along with their own. The catfish then hatch inside the mother's mouth and eat her actual offspring. It's brutal, but it highlights the almost automatic, irresistible urge to respond to egg-like or infant-like stimuli.
So it's an almost primal, irresistible urge to nurture triggered by specific signals. The research highlights that infants across many species can be incredibly powerful sensory traps.
That's a great way to put it. They exude these potent signals, visual, auditory, maybe even olfactory, that just captivate potential caregivers, whether they're closely related or not. These signals are so compelling they can sometimes override typical self-preservation instincts or species recognition mechanisms.
It's like babies are broadcasting on a frequency that caregivers are just biologically tuned to receive and respond to.
Precisely. And this leads to a kind of self-reinforcing evolutionary process. In any environment where babies who manage to attract the most care are the ones most likely to survive and thrive.
Selection will favor babies that are even better at attracting care.
Exactly. Natural selection is going to heavily favor infants who broadcast even more appealing cues, or whose attractive signals are broadcast further or more effectively. This, in turn, produces selection pressure back on the babies for traits that accentuate babiness, rendering immatures cuter and cuddlier still.
So it's an evolutionary feedback loop driving cuteness.
In a way, yes, making babies more delectable, more protected, and ultimately more likely to reach reproductive age. This process, often linked to neoteny, the retention of juvenile features into adulthood, is quite evident in humans. Our relatively flat faces, large eyes compared to face size, small noses, round heads, these are all features that reliably elicit caregiving responses.
And for human babies, their profound appeal is broadcast not by, say, flamboyant fur like some monkeys, but by these universally recognized features. Those impossibly big heads that seem too large for their tiny bodies, their plump, soft, squishy bodies, and eventually, those heart-melting smiles and turtles.
Right. We aren't born wearing, as Hardy puts it, fancy natal dress. But in many other primate species, especially those living in complex groups with high infant competition or risk from predators or infanticide.
The babies have special coloring.
Yes, neonatal coats have evolved to be more than just distinctive. They are positively flamboyant. Shocking white against dark fur, electric orange, stark black and white patterns. They're highly visible signals to would-be caregivers and maybe even potential aggressors from far away. It's a literal biological advertisement shouting, "Look at me, I'm an infant, handle with care, help me."
Okay, so if human babies don't have flamboyant fur, have we developed cultural ways to achieve the same effect? Cultural flamboyant natal coats?
It seems so. Given the strong evolutionary pressure to attract and elicit care, it's perhaps not surprising that humans have developed ingenious cultural equivalents. Hrdy explores this fascinating case study of the Beng mothers from Côte d'Ivoire in West Africa.
What do the Bing mothers do?
They meticulously decorate their babies. They use eyebrow pencil. They apply bright orange kola nut paste to the baby's head. They draw green-tinted growth lines onto the baby's skin.
Decorations. Why?
Well, to an outsider, these might seem like purely aesthetic choices, maybe just useless cultural practices, as Hrdy initially thought. But when you understand the context, they seem incredibly adaptive, serving a profound social function.
So this isn't just about making the baby look good or simple tradition.
Probably not just that. It's likely about signaling need and enhancing attractiveness in a world where constant assistance is absolutely non-negotiable for survival. Think about the Bang mothers' lives. They face enormous labor demands daily. They farm full-time, they chop and haul firewood, they fetch water, they do laundry by hand, prepare food using very labor-intensive methods.
A huge workload.
A huge workload. An undernourished woman with several young children simply could not possibly manage all these tasks and provide constant care for a dependent infant without enlisting help from kin and other villagers. These decorations, Hrdy argues, are a very deliberate, culturally constructed way to make the babies more attractive to potential allo mothers, to catch their eye, to elicit that nurturing response, and enlist that crucial help. It increases the likelihood that many hands will reach out to hold, feed, comfort, and protect the child.
So it's a cultural adaptation that directly taps into our deep-seated, evolved responsiveness to babiness, ensuring the continuity of the cooperative breeding system that allowed us to thrive.
Exactly. Think of it as like ancient social media for babies, broadcasting an appeal for connection and care in a way that resonates within their specific cultural and ecological context.
That's fascinating. Okay, so babies are actively signaling, drawing caregivers in. But this hypersociality, this deep reliance on others, it must have a downside too, right?
Yeah.
Vulnerability.
Absolutely. Part 5. The double-edged sword, the vulnerabilities of hypersociality. While human infants are uniquely good at eliciting care and are equipped with these incredible intersubjective capacities, their very hypersociality also comes with specific, perhaps uniquely human vulnerabilities. They seek more than just the security that comes from basic tactile contact, though that's certainly vital, especially for our naked, helpless babies who need to be held constantly.
They need more than just warmth and food.
Yes. These intersubjectively gifted human infants seem to crave having their singular passions, their inner states, reflected in a larger pond. They want deep emotional and communicative engagement. They need to feel truly seen, understood, mirrored, and reciprocated by multiple attuned caregivers.
That feeling of being in sync with someone.
Exactly. That profound, almost insatiable need for connection, for emotional synchrony, is what really sets them apart. And it's crucial for their developing sense of self, their social competence, their ability to trust. When a baby coos and an adult coos back, when a baby points and an adult follows their gaze and names the object, a neural pathway of connection, of shared understanding, is being actively forged.
And this need for deeper emotional engagement means that in humans, as Hrdy says, the sharing of emotional cues became a more important part of the quest for continuing commitment.
Precisely. It's not just about being physically present or providing food. It's about being emotionally attuned, responsive, available for that constant, meaningful back-and-forth interaction. This quest for emotional connection, this constant monitoring of others' intentions and feelings, is woven into our uniquely human attachment system. It lays the groundwork for empathy, trust, cooperation, even moral reasoning later on.
But if those emotional cues aren't adequately shared or reciprocated, if the baby reaches out and no one consistently reaches back emotionally.
Then that essential quest for connection can be tragically undermined. And this incredible capacity for connection, so vital for our species' success, also presents what H.E. calls a very real potential for derailment.
Derailment.
Yes. We are increasingly learning, unfortunately, that a subset of children today grow up and survive to adulthood without ever forging those truly trusting, secure relationships with consistently caring, responsive others. This lack of responsive care, particularly during those critical early developmental periods when the brain is rapidly wiring itself for social interaction based on experience,
It can have lasting consequences.
profound and lasting consequences. Children deprived of these early, diverse, and consistent connections may struggle with empathy, with emotional regulation, with forming secure attachments throughout their lives. It can impact everything from their mental health to their ability to function effectively in society, to form healthy relationships of their own.
And the potential evolutionary consequences of this. A.G. poses a really sobering thought, doesn't she? Almost chilling.
It is sobering. She posits this powerful, almost dystopian thought experiment. If empathy and our deep-seated urge to understand others develop only under very specific rearing conditions, conditions that historically involved shared responsive care from multiple individuals.
And if an ever-increasing proportion of the species fails to encounter those conditions, perhaps due to modern social changes, but they still survive and reproduce?
Then, she suggests, compassion and the quest for emotional connection will fade away as surely as sight in cave-dwelling fish.
Wow, that's a stark warning.
It is. It's a stark reminder of the potential fragility of these deeply human traits. It suggests that empathy isn't just an automatic given, it's a cultivated outcome, dependent on a specific kind of developmental environment. It implies that we actively risk losing something fundamental to our humanity if we collectively neglect the conditions that fostered it over millennia.
Have there been historical periods or cultural shifts that have already challenged this cooperative care model?
Oh, certainly. Hrdy discusses how various historical patriarchal ideologies, for example, which often focused intensely on controlling female sexuality, ensuring paternity certainty, and perpetuating male lineages, frequently seem to undercut the long-standing priority of putting children's well-being first.
How so?
Well, customs like the sequestration or confinement of women, strict chaperoning, veiling, and even extreme practices like sati, where Hindu widows were expected to immolate themselves on their husband's funeral pyre, obviously took a huge toll on women's lives and autonomy. But Hrdy argues they also took a profound toll on children. The intense societal pressure for large numbers of heirs, especially male heirs, sometimes prioritized the sheer fecundity of women and the perceived purity of the male lineage over the actual health, survival, or quality of life of any individual child. Quantity over quality, in a sense.
And it probably limited the mother's support network, too.
Absolutely. And furthermore, social conventions that strictly separated men from the domains of women and children actively discouraged the development of fathers' nurturing potentials. This effectively deprived children of another vital source of potential alloparental care and further shrank that crucial circle of support, placing even more burden on mothers or other female kin.
Bringing it forward to the modern era, we face our own set of pretty significant challenges to cooperative care, don't we? Sometimes described as monotropic tendencies.
Yes, that term refers to a modern, often Western, cultural leaning towards focusing heavily, sometimes almost exclusively, on a single primary caregiver, typically the mother, as being solely responsible for and uniquely capable of meeting all of a child's needs.
Which sounds nice in theory, maybe, but
But it can inadvertently create vulnerabilities. It puts immense pressure on that one caregiver and potentially deprives the child of the benefits of that broader, more resilient network of multiple attachments that our ancestors relied upon.
and the practical realities of modern life often make shared care difficult.
Extremely difficult for many. Think about the astronomical cost and often scarce availability of high-quality, stable daycare. Think about the high rates of turnover among caregivers in many formal childcare settings.
It's hard to replicate that deep familiarity.
It's incredibly difficult to find a true substitute for the familiarity, the deep sense of trust, and the intuitive understanding a child develops with kin, or as if kin, those individuals who have long experience responding to their particular temperament and needs, who are consistently present and emotionally invested, not just doing a job.
So that kind of continuous, responsive, diverse care from multiple committed individuals that our foraging ancestors likely experienced,
Yeah.
it's just incredibly hard to replicate in today's often fragmented, mobile, and economically pressured social structures.
It is, and this creates what Hardy points to as a profound paradox of modern progress.
A paradox.
While many, though certainly not all, modern people grow up in environments with far more abundant material resources than our ancestors ever dreamed of, they often simultaneously experience less consistent, less shared, and perhaps less emotionally attuned caring from a wide circle of people. This can lead to a very different kind of personal confidence than that enjoyed by our foraging ancestors, who were often constantly surrounded by many individuals who passionately cared for them, shared with them, and protected them. That environment endowed them with a strong, deeply embedded sense of emotional security and belonging, that working model of the world as a giving place.
Whereas today?
Today, many individuals might struggle to build that same fundamental confidence if their early care networks are thin, inconsistent, overly stressed, or primarily transactional rather than deeply relational. The shift from a more collaborative, multi-parental care model to a more isolated, often highly stressed nuclear family unit can leave both parents and children feeling vulnerable and disconnected.
This whole deep dive, it truly makes you look at our fundamental nature, our social wiring, our societies, through a dramatically different lens. It's not just about the incredible capacities we gain through evolution, our empathy, our cooperation.
No, it's also a stark reminder of what we risk losing.
Exactly. What we risk losing if we don't acknowledge and nurture and actively try to reconstruct or support the very conditions, the shared care, the community support that allowed these unique human traits to flourish in the first place.
It's a powerful call to reflection, isn't it, on the choices we make, both individually in our families and collectively as societies, about how we prioritize raising our children and supporting those who care for them.
It really is. Okay, let's try to wrap this up. So to quickly recap this truly transformative deep dive.
Yeah.
The core idea is that humans are unique among the great apes, primarily because of our extraordinary hypersociality.
Right, our deep-seated need and ability to connect and cooperate.
And this was profoundly driven by the necessities of cooperative breeding. The critical, absolutely life-sustaining role of mothers and others working together to raise our incredibly slow-maturing, helpless, and very dependent young.
That process literally forged our species' incredible capacity for empathy, for understanding others' minds, for forming complex social bonds, and ultimately for creating culture and society as we know it. It shaped our very definition of humanity.
And remember some of those surprising, even revolutionary insights we've uncovered along the way, that irrational generosity of strangers.
Now revealed as maybe not so irrational after all.
Exactly. Deeply rooted in an ancient history where reciprocity was crucial for survival, or the biological and cultural flamboyant natal coats that babies ingeniously use, consciously or not, to attract and secure care.
And the biological cues, the hormones that can prime male nurturing, showing it's not just a maternal domain. And, of course, the profound, often literally life-saving impact of grandmothers, turning what seemed like an evolutionary puzzle post-menopausal longevity into a cornerstone of human social success. It's this rich mosaic of evolutionary forces and adaptive social strategies that, woven together, made us who we are today.
And this isn't just, ancient history or a look at isolated communities from far-off lands. This understanding directly shakes the way we live now, as Sarah Blaffer Hrdy's daughter so wisely put it.
It really does.
Understanding these deep evolutionary roots can genuinely help us reflect critically on our own modern child-rearing practices, our community structures, or lack thereof, the immense pressures on families today.
It gives us a baseline almost.
Yeah, a baseline. It's a powerful reminder of the fundamental conditions our species evolved to thrive in. And perhaps it offers a kind of guide for how we might think about building more resilient, more connected, more empathetic societies moving forward.
Indeed, because ultimately, our species' remarkable success and, crucially, our continued well-being, our mental and social health hinges on this inherent capacity for emotional connection and cooperation. As we navigate an increasingly complex, fast-paced, and often quite isolating modern world, the really big question Hrdy leaves us with is, how do we ensure that the conditions that foster these uniquely human traits, conditions fundamentally rooted in shared responsive care from a broad network of committed individuals, how do we ensure those conditions continue to be met?
Not just for some children, but for all children.
Exactly, not just for the privileged few, but for all children. How do we consciously work to reclaim or recreate that giving place for the next generation? That's a question worth pondering deeply and maybe more importantly, acting upon in our own lives, in our families, and in our wider communities.
Absolutely. A really powerful thought to end on. Think about what making the world a giving place truly means in your own context. How can you perhaps expand your own circle of care or support those who are striving to do the same for others? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insights into the fascinating science of human nature.